Hi, and welcome to More Human, More Resources, the HR podcast for entrepreneurs. I'm Vicki Brown, your host and CEO of Vidamaneo Enterprises. As a serial entrepreneur, I understand that having the right expert help has been critical to my success. That's why I'm dedicated to telling you, in plain language, what's going on in the world of HR that might impact your business and what you need to do about it, with real actionable tips to help you master that list of must-dos and grow your leadership muscle. First things first, the information contained in this podcast is provided for general purposes only and is not to be considered legal advice. Your decision to adopt or not adopt any practice or procedure mentioned in this podcast is solely yours, and we bear no responsibility for the outcome. We urge you to always consult legal counsel and other appropriate licensed professionals. And with that, let's get into the show. You're listening to Season 4, Episode 21. All right, first, let's just both agree that if you must terminate someone's employment, it's always better to do it in person. In fact, I would go so far as to say you should do everything in your power to have that meeting in person. Why? Well, because letting someone go can feel like failure for the person. They may be embarrassed or feel less than, and that's not how you want to leave any relationship. After all, it's not about them as a person. It's about them not being the right fit for your company at that time. You know, I've said this before, but that same person may go down the street, start working for a different company, and be a superstar in that environment. So always remember, it's not about making that person feel bad. It's just not a happy union. So both parties need to move on. Okay, so yes, it's best to do it in person. But what if you can't because of distance or some other reason? Well, a remote termination will really require you to have all your ducks in a row. You know, remote terminations present unique challenges that aren't typically encountered in the traditional office setting. The lack of face-to-face interaction can easily come off as impersonal and cold. And there are logical considerations too. How do you get the company property back? What about security? And on and on. All that to say, you've got to prepare. For the purposes of this discussion, I'm going to assume that if it's a performance issue, you've laid the proper groundwork by talking to the employee a number of times, going through a formal warning process, and consulting legal if the issue is particularly thorny. So, let's assume all that's been done. Now, we get to the details. Figure out the timing first. What do you want to be their last day? Now, I know this sounds fairly simple, but you have to take into account the final pay rules in your state. For instance, here in California, employees who are discharged must be paid all wages due at the time of termination. Now, that means if you're doing this remotely, you'll need to arrange for their check to get to them on that day. So be ready with a messenger. And on the direct deposit question, aside from the fact that in all likelihood the employee will see the money in their account before you can even have the meeting, you actually have to get specific authorization for them to deposit their final pay. The standing direct deposit form becomes void on termination, so there's that. Now, what are you going to do about any company-owned items that they may have? How will you get them back? Again, I suggest a messenger. What about security? Figure out the timing on shutting down access and email. And last, but certainly not least, how are you going to communicate to the rest of the team? So many people forget this step, but remember, when you let someone go, it has an impact on everyone who's left. Even if you have a great culture and great people, it still causes a bit of uneasy feeling. So keep all that in mind as you craft what you're going to say to them. Now, on to the meeting. When will you have it? Will it be virtual or in person? Again, for this discussion, I'm going to assume it's a virtual meeting. Who's going to be on the call? Meaning, do you want a witness? It's important to let the employee know that the meeting is to discuss their employment. Listen, surprises aren't good for anyone, but you don't have to go into the final decision yet. Choose a video conferencing tool that can ensure privacy and security, because this is a really sensitive conversation. And be mindful of the employee's time zone and try to schedule the meeting at a time that's respectful of their schedule. And these days, Just assume you're being recorded. Now, that may not be true, but TikTok is littered with "this is how I got fired" videos, so be mindful of what you say and how you say it. When it's time to communicate the decision, it's crucial to be clear and respectful. Reference the prior performance discussions you've had. State that you haven't seen the level of improvement that's required, and so you're going to let them go. Be direct, but also be compassionate. This is tough news for anyone to receive, and the way you deliver it can make a big difference. You should also have the termination documents at the ready. Let them know what's in the package and that you will email it to them at the end of the meeting. Also, and this will be a critical point for them, let them know when and how they're getting their final pay. It's even nice to give them a screen share of what the stub looks like so they don't have to wait. By the way, also include a copy of the pay stub in the package that you email to them. Now, once the meeting is done, do all the things. Get company equipment back, trigger access security, talk to the team, etc. And when the dust settles, review the whole process. What went well and what didn't go as planned? How can you make it better next time? Listen, something like this will never be easy, but by doing a process review, you can make it better. If you found this information helpful, please leave a review and tell a friend. Thanks for spending the time. Until next week, same time, same place.